Bogey's breakdown.
Bam. But for me, especially as a Boston fan, I think I'd be remiss to mention the fact that Keith spent some time at the end of his career in Boston, and it was a part of one of the most, some people say, controversial. I see some people say it was the worst trade ever. If you're a Boston fans, they say it's one of the best trades ever, right? But at the end of the day, it was that infamous trade back, was it 2013? When the Celtics shipped off Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett to the Brooklyn Nets for a package of players that included Keith, included Kris Humphries. Who was the other dude with the green socks? I can't remember.
MarShon Brooks.
MarShon Brooks in his green socks, right, at the press conference,
Yep,
right?
Yep.
And there was one other person in that trade, too, wasn't there?
Kris Humphries, MarShon Brooks, Gerald Wallace.
Yes.
Gerald Wallace.
So,
Gerald Wallace.
And then, the big thing, obviously, was the draft picks, right? So that was why Boston really did it. And Brooklyn was trying to get a splash. They got to, Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. Pierce, nobody thought would ever leave the Celtics, right?
Right.
But he did, because they were in a rebuilding mode at that point, and they wanted to give him an opportunity to still compete towards the end of his career. So, so just give us your thoughts on that whole thing. We're going to do a whole episode on that eventually, because there's so much there. But tell us about, just going through that.
Well, going through, that was when getting traded from Brooklyn to Boston, actually, that was the first year that the Nets moved from New Jersey to Brooklyn. So I got to play that first year in Brooklyn with all the hype.
Barclays Center.
You got Jay-Z, Beyonce.
He was always there every game,
there.
right?
So that was a lot of fun, just transitioning from New Jersey to New York. So the following year is when the trade comes. But I get hurt. I got hurt the year before that. What benefited me, a lot of people don't know this, is if you get hurt in the NBA and you come back and you play a full season, your bird rights can kick in. So
the bird rights, yeah.
Bird rights, that's pretty much
it can get confusing for a lot of fans trying to follow the trading rules of the NBA.
So one of the interesting things, this is something that I learned in the NBA. So I got hurt probably, I think it was the lockout year. I get hurt, I signed a contract. Avery Johnson was the coach in New Jersey at the time. I come in for a workout. We work out for probably 10 or 15 minutes. He said, we got a game on the road in Indiana. When we come back, we're going to sign you. I played 2 games. I break my ankle. Kris Humphries, I always blame Hump for this, but broke my ankle. Hump, you know why I broke my ankle. But I played 2 games, and they asked me to stick around in Brooklyn. I mean, at the time, it was New Jersey, to rehab, and we still practice in Jersey. So I stuck around. They had to cut me, but I still was able to use the rehab because they had to use the roster spot. So I got cut so they could bring in someone else to fill that roster spot. So I stayed in New Jersey. I worked out, went to the facility, everything I had to do to get back. So I come back the following year, the team moves to Brooklyn. So I didn't know if I come back and I play a full year without getting hurt again, my bird rights will kick in.
So that was a surprise to you.
That was a surprise, but
wow.
I still didn't know. I'm just happy to be in the NBA playing.
Yeah.
So I remember Billy King calls me in and he says to me, this trade doesn't go through. Your contract is the only contract to make this trade go through with Boston. But previously I played a full season without getting hurt the first year in Brooklyn.
And that's what activates the
That's
bird
what
rights.
activates my bird rights. So being hurt, playing a full season without getting hurt, now I qualified for the bird rights. So because of the bird rights, I was on like a vet minimum. So that made the numbers for Kevin and Paul to come to Brooklyn and for us to get shipped to Boston. So I remember, rest in peace, my agent at the time, Dan Fagan. Dan called me and he's like, I got a deal. I'm like, well, what's the deal? And he explains the deal to me and I'm like, how many years? And he says, I'm like, where's the paperwork? Send me the fucking paperwork. So he sends it, I sign it, and that's how I ended up in Boston. And I mean, it was kind of a blessing come true. I mean, I wanted to go and play basketball for as long as I could, but I didn't think that I would, end up in Boston the way that I did. And I didn't get to play, so I wasn't happy about that. But speaking of the draft picks that we got traded for, I think those draft picks we're watching some of that happen.
Well, we are. It's Jayson Tatum.
Some trades and stuff, it happens right away. But this is one of those things where a lot of people didn't pay attention to what Boston was doing at the time. They were rebuilding. They were getting rid of all the older guys, and they were going younger. And I think throughout that process, it's been some years, but that's what it takes to change what they were trying to do. And I think at this point now, we can all see with that trade how it impacted the team and where the team is now.
Well, and that's the super interesting part to me, is because you think about how it went down. When the trade first happened, who do you remember them saying was the winners and the losers? Do you remember them saying Brooklyn gave up too much then at that point, or did it seem more like Boston was just trying to get out of these contracts at that time?
Well, I think at the time, Boston was. It both helped each other out, because Boston was trying to go younger, start the rebuilding process, and Brooklyn needed big names. So
yeah.
I think
they just had the new stadium.
Yeah, got the new stadium. You bring in Paul and Kevin. Come on, I'm Keith Bogans. You got MarShon Brooks. Gerald and Hump. They're big name guys, but you bringing in some guys that they're big hitters. You had Paul. You had Kevin. They're gonna bring the fans into the arena. Let's be honest. So
yeah,
I think, and then once you get to Boston, and they were older guys, and you hear the stories of how they were trying to rebuild, and they got exactly what they wanted. And I think Brooklyn got what they wanted too. I think both sides kind of balanced out.
Yeah. Now, and that was right before that. Doc Rivers had just left, I think, Boston.
Yep.
And that was Brad Stevens' first year. Now he's in the front office. I think that was his first coaching year. Now he's in the front office there. So a lot has changed. Obviously, that's 10 years ago now. Just about, right? Isn't that incredible? That's how long it was?
That just goes to show, like I said, sometimes a trade is made. People expect the trade to happen and benefit from it right away.
We're talking about a trade that panned out.
I think
years in the making.
They saw, you get rid of the older guys. It's going to take time to rebuild, and I think we're seeing a bunch of teams do that over the years since Boston started that. Other teams did it a long time ago, but you look at Boston, like I said, they're in the finals now, and some of those picks that they picked back then are playing in the finals right now.
So let me ask you this, then. We'll wrap up the trade conversation. Could you have stopped the trade from happening? If you was there any say that you had in this?
Like I said, like my agent at the time, who's no longer with us, rest in peace. He told me if I didn't, my numbers were the only numbers that would make the contract.
That matched up the contract.
And it favored me. I quadrupled my salary, so I'm crazy not to sign it. So I just immediately, signed it and, moved on to Boston.
So you got that. They got their deal. Now, all these years later, we're talking about them in the finals here. And we're launching our podcast during the finals.
Absolutely. Having a lot of fun watching.